If you have a toddler like me, you know that they always want a snack. That's why I decided to make today some homemade wheat thins. They're crispy, slightly sweet and salty crackers made with 2 different types of flour, and they taste almost identical to the real thing. Plus, you have the satisfaction of knowing that you made them yourself. So come on, grab a rolling pin, and I'll show you how to make this. What's up, universe? Welcome back to our kitchen. And in case you're new here, I'm Julie, I'm a chef, I'm a mom, and for this season of our show, we're focusing on some easy and yummy snacks that we can actually execute and film while our son Lincoln naps. With all that said, I think it's time to make some homemade wheat thins. What you're gonna need is all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, sugar, kosher salt, paprika, unsalted butter, water, and vanilla extract. I know what you're thinking, but no, I don't sit around making homemade snacks for Lincoln all the livelong day. This is an exception, but it's also kind of fun. So we're gonna start off by grabbing a food processor. If you want a list of any of my recommended tools, I'll always leave them down in the description box below, as well as the written recipe that has all of the measurements and amounts. So start off by preheating your oven to 400 degrees, get that nice and hot. Now you're gonna work with 2 different types of flour. Even though this is called wheat thins, I am using regular all-purpose flour as well. But if you want to just use whole wheat, that's up to you. You can totally do that. So I'm gonna use 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, and then 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. And the whole wheat flour actually does add a nice rich texture to it. Then you're gonna have 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, a little sweetness, a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and you're gonna wanna have some extra salt at the end for sprinkling on top. And last, for our dry, we're gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. And this adds color and that little bit of flavor that's kind of like, what is that? And then we're gonna also add in a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. This is cold butter that's cubed, and it's this cold butter cut into cubes mixed with a dry that forms it into this crumbly, coarse sand texture. We're just gonna pulse this for a little bit. Okay, I think that looks good. So if you wanna check it out, the texture is very fine. It is like a fine sand, like a crumbly sand. Next, I have a 1/4 cup of cold water plus 2 tablespoons, so it just ends up being a little bit shy under 1/2 cup. And then we're gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and make sure it's pure vanilla extract, not imitation. We're gonna add that to the water. Vanilla water. You take the little feeding tube up here, and while the blades are running on the dough setting, feed this vanilla water through the tube, and then the dough should come together into a ball. So dough setting. That's kind of fun, right? So you see it turns into this nice little ball. If yours doesn't turn out this way, you may just need to add a little bit more water. Reversely, if it turns like this before you use all your liquid up, then don't use all your liquid. It just really depends. Grab yourself some bench flour. So that's just regular all-purpose flour that you're going to use to sprinkle all over your work surface. Make sure you grab your rolling pin. I'm just using my French rolling pin with the tapered ends, but you can just use anything, wine bottle. This dough is kind of sticky, so you're gonna find yourself maybe needing to re-sprinkle the flour as you go along. So it helps to, work with some sort of scraper, like dough scraper. There's really no need to knead this because that's what it did in the food processor. So we're just going to cut this in half and make 2 batches. In order to save some time, normally I would go and make 2 batches, but right now I think I'm just gonna make 1 batch. This other batch, you can just wrap it well with saran wrap, keep it in your fridge for another day, or even in your freezer if you're gonna go longer than a couple days. When I tested this, I actually found that some pieces were kind of left thick, so they took longer to cook in the oven, and the texture ended up being a little bit weirder, like not as crisp. It was just a little bit more like a pita chip, but in a weird way. So you wanna go as thin as you can, about a 1/16 of an inch. Try to go even and slow, and this dough is nice quality because it's just rolling beautifully. This is my preferred method whenever rolling something. I do like to turn the dough itself as opposed to me turning, and I've demonstrated that before in other videos. But if you can't because it's a little sticky, I understand, just go slow. Slow your roll. I think, oh, see, I need a little bit more flour in my rolling pin. If you can see, because of that wheat flour and the all-purpose flour, it's speckled nicely, which is very familiar to the look of actual wheat thins you get from the box. So why did I choose to make wheat thins? It reminds me of my husband. He really loves wheat thins, which I thought was so interesting. Remember I bought them one time just as a snack, and I'm like, I don't know if you like wheat thins. He's like, what are you talking about? I love them. I used to eat them all the time. So I was like, oh, that's new. And as you can see what I'm doing, I'm using my rolling pin to kind of help me turn the dough so I can get a better angle. I feel like I'm living dangerously, living on the edge, because I'm like really pushing it without breaking it, without ripping it. All right, guys, I'm tempted to keep going, but I think I'm gonna stop there. So I'm gonna roughly measure out using a pizza cutter about 1.5-inch squares. Of course, if you don't wanna be exact like me, you don't have to use a ruler. I'm actually not even being too exact. I'm just using this as a guideline. And I am for sure not being exact at this point. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, using my ruler as a semi-guide. But if you're a perfectionist, go for it. And if this is driving you crazy, I understand you. And I'm just using one of my longer pieces to use that as a base as where to start my markings for 1.5 inches this way. But yes, you do want to work a little bit fast so that the butter doesn't completely melt and that your dough doesn't get sticky and sticks to the board. It also helps that I chose to make these crackers during the winter. This is the week after the polar vortex here in Chicago, so it's still kind of cold out. I don't know what it is, but when you work with dough, you just feel accomplished. You really feel like proud. I don't know how to explain it. All right, so now you just want to dock your dough so that it doesn't puff up too much. You can skip this step, it'll just turn a little puffy. So you can just grab even like a tines of a fork, a toothpick. I looked through my drawers and I found this little cheese server thing. So I'm gonna just use that, and just to save myself time and aggravation. So I'm just gonna poke maybe just 4 holes. So just 2 stabs in the crackers. I am gonna probably be a little bit wasteful and not end up baking all the ones with the scraps on the end, just because, I don't know, I just rather have nice looking crackers. This might seem like a lot of effort to make, crackers you can buy in a box, but you can use this for like a grown-up charcuterie board too. And it'll just be like that extra fancy touch that you did, that loving touch. And I think I'm just going along with like the cheese serving utensils. It's just all in one drawer. I'm gonna use this little guy to help pick up the crackers, but you can just use a spatula, just transferring them over to a parchment lined baking sheet. Here's the thing, because we're human and we're gonna roll things at different thicknesses, no matter how hard we try, some crackers inevitably will cook faster than the others. And once again, if you were really doing that whole batch of dough, you would have 2 trays full. Okay, and now when you have all your soldiers lined up, you're gonna add the last sprinkling of the salt on top. Helps with the look and the taste. That final sprinkling of salt is what does it. So you don't have to go nuts, just like a slight sprinkling. So there's nothing else to do except pop them into a 400-degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. You really do want to watch it. Some of the thinner pieces, you can tell which ones they are. They're going to cook up and crisp up and turn brown a little faster. So you're just going to want to pull them out and save them on the side and then pop the rest of the tray back in. made. This is just really a simple snack of cheese and crackers, but I decided to pair it with the cheese, you know, why not?
I really love wheat thins. It was like during my college years and young adult life, it was my snack of choice. I think it's a perfect bite.
As you keep chewing, you get the hint of everything, like that little touch of vanilla, the subtle sweetness, definitely the saltiness, the crispiness.
I could sit down, watch a show, and munch on the whole thing in one sitting. Try it with the cheese.
It's an addicting flavor, isn't it?
I mean, that's why I love the original, the packaged wheat thins.
It's perfectly crisp and slightly puffy. So when you bite into it, it kind of shatters in your mouth. And there's like a little bit of that hearty graininess that you know from wheat thins, from the wheat flour, that adds that texture. Oh, look, our neighbors across the street. As we're filming, our windows are wide open and people are staring at us from outside, eating crackers and cheese. I can't wait for Lincoln to try this because I feel like he will like it. I think the first time I ever made it, he was a little bit younger. He didn't know what the heck he was doing.
Probably a little too hard for him.
Yeah, but I think he'll like it now. Nice and crispy and puffy, a little bit healthier, made with wheat flour, homemade. I know exactly what's in it, so no preservatives. So, I don't know, I think it's just fun to make it, so why don't you give it a try? Let me know if you do. You can always tag me on Instagram. We'll leave our handles right here. I really do enjoy it with the cheese, but I love it on its own.
Yeah, I like it on its own.
Yeah.
It has that authentic flavor.
I kind of want to do a side-by-side taste test now. I want to buy a box.
I mean, it's very similar.
Well, I feel like we're just going to sit here munching away. Joe, did you eat that whole ramekin?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I have to now make that second batch for sure. I was like, oh, I'm gonna save some for Lincoln. We have a friend coming from out of town today. I was like, oh, he can eat some too when he gets here, but stop eating in one sitting. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, remember to let us know by pushing like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell for notifications. And I mentioned this before, but any of our recommended tools that we used in this video and also our written recipe is in the description box down below. So go there for all their measurements and amounts. Thanks so much for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.